Israel has recovered the body of hostage Ilan Weiss from the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has confirmed Weiss was kidnapped and killed during the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack. Items belonging to a second individual were also found, though their identity remains undisclosed. Weiss's wife and daughter were also taken hostage but were later released in a prisoner swap in November. Israel says 49 hostages still remain in Gaza, with only 20 believed to be alive. Meanwhile, Palestinians mourn 6 family members killed overnight in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza City. The victims were sheltering in a tent when the strike hit. Their bodies were laid at Al-Shifa Hospital as relatives prayed ahead of burial. Israel says it aims to target Hamas's group and free hostages while trying to avoid civilian casualties. Let's listen into what some of the relatives of Palestinians killed in Israeli strikes have said.
ما مش فاهم ليش انقصفوا؟ ايش حجتهم المره هاد؟ ايش الحجه؟ ليش قصفوهم؟ يقولوا لنا ايش عملوا هذول هم نايمين اطفال ابو 3 سنين، ايش عمل؟ رفع عليهم ايش سلاح؟ ايش ارهابي هذا؟ ايش عمل طفل صغير اللي في ايده لعبه ونايم؟
ليست حرب، هذه مجازر، هذه حرب اباده وليس حرب بين طرفين، بل هي من طرف واحد، اباده شعب قطاع غزه بالكامل، وليست يعني حرب، انما هي اباده، ترحيل وتشريد وتدمير، الصغير قبل الكبير، المرأة قبل الرجل.
Now for this discussion, we're joined by Ross Feingold. He's a political analyst, joins us live from Taipei. Thank you, Ross, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, with the recovery of one of the bodies and reports of more than 40 hostages still in Gaza, how does this development affect Israel's operational priorities and also Israeli public sentiment?
Well, there are two very, very distinct issues there. Now, the operational goals of the Israeli military in Gaza have recently expanded, and that's notwithstanding the fact that there's a number of living hostages as well as the bodies of deceased hostages that are still being held by Hamas. And although there's been public protest that has been ongoing for an extended period of time against the way that Netanyahu has decided to conduct the war, those domestic political protests, and let alone the international criticism, have not stopped Israel's government from conducting the war in the way that they want to. So whether it's public protest or the recovery of a body of a deceased hostage, at the moment, it doesn't seem to affect the military goals or the orders that Prime Minister Netanyahu gives to the military.
And do you think could this intensify pressure on the Israeli government to change their course of military action?
Well, that's really the interesting question here, because up to now, that really hasn't changed what Netanyahu does. There's a large number of people in Israel who simply don't like him. And they didn't like him before the war with Hamas, and they didn't like him after the war. And of course, there's the relatives of the hostages who are constantly leading rallies to change the way the war is being conducted, to reach a ceasefire so that any living hostages can be released. And again, Netanyahu is he's just immune to that. He is not responsive to that kind of domestic criticism. He hasn't been for an extended period of time. And again, his recent decision that he's ordering the Israeli Defense Forces to occupy Gaza City, he's calling up additional reservists. Again, it indicates that despite domestic criticism, he's immune to that for now, and he's continuing to conduct the war in the way he wants to.
And how sustainable, also how risky is it that Israel's current strategy of balancing hostage recovery with targeted strikes?
There are a number of issues at play there. One, there's the domestic criticism, but again, Netanyahu is for now immune to that. He's not listening to that, and he's proceeding regardless of that domestic criticism. There's the international criticism, which similarly Netanyahu is generally immune to. He was responsive to some of the criticism about the food situation and malnutrition, and he has allowed in more aid trucks, although it's clearly not enough, but he's allowed in more in recent months compared to, say, 4 or 5 months ago. Ultimately, the biggest supporter of Israel is the United States and the Trump administration. And for now, the Trump administration is continuing to back Netanyahu, although the Trump administration is involved, along with Egypt and Qatar, in trying to mediate ceasefires. And I think the Trump administration genuinely is committed to that process and would like to see a ceasefire. But in the absence of a ceasefire, the Trump administration continues to support Netanyahu, continues to provide weapons to the Israeli military. And with that backing, Netanyahu will, again, he'll continue to do what he thinks is the best policies to keep Israel safe.
Right. Thank you very much, Ross, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, Thailand's constitution